Should I go again? All right, so welcome to tonight's meeting. First order of business is the call to order. First time here, guys, sorry. All right, so the approval of our previous minutes from October 2nd, 2017. Does anyone have a motion?
Kate, I'd like to motion that we approve the minutes from October 2nd, 2017.
All approved?
Second.
In favor. All opposed?
Wait, I missed that vote, I'm sorry. But I was approved, I was approving it.
I'll help out with a second.
Thank you, Kevin.
All in favor? All right, our third, all opposed. Okay. Our third item is our recognition. I don't believe we have one for this evening, correct? Okay, so we'll move on to our presentations. First up, we have the Casco Bay Japan Exchange Program. They will be talking about their trip, and we'll be calling an item for action that might not be on your blue notes, but we'll be calling it for approval of the trip.
There you go. Good evening, members of the Board of Education, MSAD 51 staff, students, community members of Cumberland and North Yarmouth. Konbanwa. My name is Kate Olson-Petrowski, and I am on the board of the Casco Bay Exchange Program. I am also the Japan Club leader at Greeley Middle School, where I work as a school counselor.
Good evening. My name's Rebecca Pruenti. I teach French at GMS, and I'm also on the board of the Casco Bay Japan Exchange Program. On behalf of our program, we wish to tell you how pleased we are to have just completed our 25th anniversary of our exchange. It has been a very successful year for the Casco Bay Japan Exchange Program. We have officially received our 501c3 status as a nonprofit organization. Last January, we hosted 10 students from Aomori, Japan, and in July, we brought 9 students from Greeley Middle School and Harrison Middle School in Yarmouth to Aomori. Last year was our first year working with Harrison Middle School, and it has been a seamless transition. Our students have broadened their group of friends and learned that it is easy to collaborate with our neighbors to the north. They work together to understand and express the culture and values of our communities, both to our Japanese friends when they hosted in January and when they traveled as ambassadors in July. Staying with a family from another country allows students to get a personal and inside look into each other's cultures. Our guests in January also enjoyed building connections and strengthening their connections with our Greeley and Harrison communities. This exchange is a very special opportunity that Casco Bay Japan Exchange Program worked hard to make happen. It's a lot of work on everyone's part, and it's always worth it.
I had the opportunity to chaperone the trip this past summer and can tell you that our students were open-hearted, brave, adventurous, kind, and creative. They shared a cultural program with hundreds of Japanese students where they performed a hip-hop dance and demonstrated lacrosse. They also created a movie that played at the school in Japan. They met mayors, dignitaries, Buddhist monks, teachers, lots of students, people of all ages. They were peacemakers. To love people from another country is the work of enhancing world peace. And boy, did they fall in love. And it was mutual. The relationships that are built through these exchanges stay with the travelers and hosts for a lifetime. We are currently planning to host 10 students from Japan in 2018 and are currently searching for host families. And again this summer, we will be taking 10 students from our communities to Japan. We have brought some information about the history of our program, the Casco Bay Exchange Program, and we'll leave them for anyone who would like to read more. I'll leave them on the chair over here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions, comments for the presenters? Karen?
Just a couple of comments. I think it's fabulous. Congratulations on the nonprofit status. I know that was a couple of years in the process. And the 25th anniversary of the program, I think that's just a testimony to how passionate people feel about this exchange, that we've been able to keep it going as a community. And I'm thrilled that we're collaborating now with the Yarmouth schools as well, because I'd love to see that expand even further, but I know it's a lot to ask since you're a nonprofit and volunteer organization. But it's just amazing from the time that I've participated on the boards and even when my own children were in the school system to see a commitment to the program from not only the parents and the teachers and the staff, but the excitement from the kids who get to participate. So I would just encourage more families to consider participating in the program because it's really awesome. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, now do I have a motion to approve the Casco Bay Japan Exchange Program trip for this year?
I'll make the motion to approve the Casco Bay Japan trip for the 2018. Is it the 2018 year that you're going, or 2017? 2018.
I'll second. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you very much.
Nicely done.
So our next item on our agenda is the technology annual update with Dirk Van Kern, our technology director.
Do you want us to clap after you too, Dirk?
Or before.
Oh, Sally, I need your login. Sally's computer.
Figured he would have it.
What's this extra? Oh, there is. Awesome. There'll be a test later.
Great. I look forward to this every year because right after Columbus Day weekend, I feel like that's the turning point after getting everything up and out to all the students and the staff. And now we're looking at, okay, what did we put in the plan and what are we going to work on all year? So this is going to go to some work that we started last year. We did the Technology Advisory Committee that came. It was a bunch of faculty, administrators, and community members, and came up with this vision statement, which kind of grounded us with the work that we did this summer and moving forward. So just give you a chance. I'm going to read it just because I think it needs to be repeated over and over, and it's really tied to the strategic plan. At MSAD 51, our vision for learning is to create leaders and global citizens prepared to strive in a changing world. We enhance communication and collaboration through the creative and innovative use of a variety of digital tools. We endeavor to promote critical thinking and problem analysis, prepare students to adapt to challenges as they arise in an increasingly connected and changing world, and create multiple learning pathways. We demonstrate ethical decision-making for self and society when using digital resources and while participating in digital communities. So with the strategic plan, if I came from the bottom up, it's what do we do about digital citizenship within our schools? Then what are some of the multiple pathways that we can do and how technology helps that? And then up to all the different things that we can do, which is so different from what's in the classroom, what is traditional with just rows of desks. So in this site improvement plan, basically, it's 3 areas that we're going to focus on. The first was taking what we had built last year were teacher technology teams. Each school has a teacher technology team that meets once a month and worked with administrators, myself, Donna Green, and kind of solidified what was happening at each school level. So we decided to bring up a higher level of focus to a K-12. So we started the Technology Leadership Committee. And what that representation is a K-12 focus, as I said, but it's a member of every single grade up until you get to 9th grade. And then it's every department, plus special ed, assistive technology, all the administrators, myself, Donna, and all the library media specialists. So there's a group of almost 18 people that make up this technology leadership committee. So we met on August 22nd as a group, and what we wanted to focus on were the ISTE standards. So 1A is the International Society for Technology and Education. That is kind of our guiding light of how technology should be integrated in education. So if you walked around today, I bet half the people, if you said, do you know what the ISTE standards are, they'd give you a blank stare, which is fine. We've never asked them to go and implement these standards. So this was the first time as a large group we really started to dissect those ISTE standards. So with that, we also, with this technology leadership committee, we wanted to bring a K-12 focus to the implementation of technology. So what is a kindergartner going to pass on to a first grade? What can a second grade teacher know that that first grader is going to come in with skills around devices? So right now, and I say rolling out the start of the year, we now have everybody K-8 has a device that's supplied from the district. The sleep works on this. And then we have the BYOD, bring your own learning device here at the high school. So our expectation is every kid has a device to work on. So now how is that going to affect those students as they move through the grades? The next are the school technology leadership teams. So that really is the same technology teams, that teacher tech teams we had, but the people from the leadership committee also are on that, and they're leading the school-based work that has to happen. So they are the lead learners in the schools, and they also are going to be working with those ISTE standards. Now, I want to just back up to the ISTE standards. The work in August, we knew we couldn't bite off everything of all 7 standards, so we felt the most important standard of all of them to start with is digital citizenship. So with that in mind, that's the work with the teachers in every building. What are we going to do to help kids understand the ramifications of using technology in today's world? And it looks different, of course, as you can imagine, K-12. So they are going to be working in the building. So at sometime in the spring, we'll meet again as a full group, and then as the teams, they work every month, and they work throughout the year. So we will have what we consider the right digital citizenship pieces for each grade. That is just the stepping stone to moving to more of the standards. And then the other thing was these leaders will be doing the school-based support. So what is the effective use in the grade levels, and then also setting the PD goals by those schools. As an example, here in the high school, on Wednesday, we have new interactive projectors. So one of the things around technology, we're going to be doing basically a beginner, intermediate, and advanced PD around using the interactive projectors in the classroom. Then we have down at GMS 4.5, they're going to bring the ISTE standards to the staff and do it in a Kahoot, which is a program that you can answer questions and make it like a game. So they're going to have teams and see who comes up with the highest score, understanding what the ISTE standards are without being told that they know about the ISTE standards. So it'll be an interesting example of where our comfort level in that school is around ISTE standards. So that's pretty much what our SIP for this year is. It's not about the device, it's about the learning. And what is that learning at every level now that we have a device with every student? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up for board questions, comments, any observations? Well, I think that, I remember last year, go ahead.
You can go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I remember last year it was really around the technology itself and how we were going to meet some challenges that we were facing. And I think it's great to see that this year we've taken care of that, and now we're moving on to more, how do our students exist in the world of technology, and what does that mean for them and the choices they make? So I think that's great. Karen?
Just a couple quick questions. First of all, congratulations on finally getting a device into every person's hands. I know we've talked each year when you've come up to speak with us, as Kate referenced, some years, I think we started out way back talking about how many of our items were obsolete, how many of our devices were just completely obsolete, and then how many of ours were, just simply dated, and
The
then
vintage.
the
Yes.
vintage.
We have
Thank
the
you.
vintage.
And so it's nice to see that those kind of charts don't. That's not the focus of your presentation.
I think we have turned that corner now, and it really can be about leveraging these in the classroom.
And that's,
Exciting.
and to me, that is exciting, and it's also nice to see that you're developing a K-12 plan for that, because I think I also remember conversations around, yes, if we get the devices in people's hands, how are we going to make sure that the learning is effective and the time spent with the device is consistent across a grade? And now you're not even talking about across a grade. You're talking, about a contingency K through 12. And I think it's been really a short number of years that I've watched you take and the technology team, sort of formulate this grand idea and bring it forward to the betterment of our entire school system. So congratulations and kudos to you and to, I know,
Well,
the
team,
hardworking
too,
staff.
and the administrators all knowing that this is where we need to get to, so we
Right.
can make this change. And I'll just put a plug in. It's for the community too. The community part of the digital citizenship. Just last Wednesday, they brought in Mandy Levine from and did a cyberbullying presentation with Parent University in conjunction with Foundation 51 and the PTO. And this Thursday, I'm doing online safety and what we do in the schools around the digital citizenship piece. So bringing the community in, because these devices aren't just here at the school, and it's a 24/7, 365-day device that we have to make sure all our kids and we all do the right thing with them.
And there's no play, this is a perfect example when we talk about the pace of change and how, not only in how it affects the school system, but how it affects our communities. And this is just a perfect example. I'm glad to see that you're even incorporating the community. And I'm sure you're working with, broader other schools on bigger issues, across the state of Maine. I just know that's how you think and how your department works. So I think that's, phenomenal. And I'm just impressed that we're here as quickly as we got here, and I'm sure that we'll be much further just in a few years with this type of design. So thank you.
Kevin?
Yeah, I really wanted to build on that as well. You seem to turn up weekends and nights in any place that somebody has a digital emergency, and so I deeply thank you for that. But to the point that you were just making about Parent University through the PTO and Foundation 51, that work, I was able to join your session last year around digital citizenship, and then certainly I think Mandy Levine is as good as it gets when she talks about those real threats that folks in the community are seeing around cybersecurity or cyberbullying. So, thanks so much for the work that you do to bring the community inside the walls here.
And we want them to come in and volunteer, because one of the biggest ways for them to understand the cyberbullying is come into the schools, volunteer, be a fly on the wall in your kid's classroom and see how they interact and things. So hopefully we'll see more of that. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
I just want to also just plug for the technology department and all the work that they have done in implementing the strategic plan around one-to-one access, because that was the first component of our technology part of the strategic plan, was the access, and then the digital citizenship. So that was a huge lift on the technology department, led by Dirk. And it has made a tremendous difference in terms of teaching and learning in our district as well. And we also have had some network issues that Dirk has been working on and working through, cleaning our network up as well. So I think we're at a good place. And this is also the 8th and last school site improvement plan, SIP, that you'll hear this year. So all of them have been presented now, and these are all aligned to the strategic plan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dirk.
Our next item on our agenda is our 2016-17 MEA results with Sally Laughlin.
And if I might just step to the previous agenda item, I can say this and Dirk wouldn't. Part of one of the ways that we got to one-to-one with full saturation is because Dirk does such an excellent job of finding great deals and getting them to be even better deals. And that is a skill that not all educators have. So we see it as an incredible skill, Dirk, and I don't know anyone that parallels you at getting the very best deal out of the businesses. So people just need to know he's awesome. Okay, I'll be quick. So we did our students in grades 3 through 8 and 11 completed the state's main educational assessment in March and April of last spring. And I'm here to share a few of the results with you and the public and to answer your question or address your questions at this point. Thanks for giving me a chance. Just to make sense of this, it might be helpful to take a couple minutes with context because the context around the testing program has changed a little bit. And then we'll just share kind of high-level summary results. And there's a lot more information should you be interested, but this was really a presentation for the public and a little discussion of what do we do with this information at this time, our next steps. So just to be aware that the state's main educational assessment, what we call the MEA, is the umbrella name for all student testing in grades 3 through 8, and then again in grade 11 in the high school. And the MEA has different tests at different levels. So this first slide just helps you orient that over the last 5 years, we've seen a number of shifts and changes in this testing program. We had several years of consistent assessment with the New England Assessment of Educational, I think I blew it. New England Common Assessment Program, NECAP. And then we transitioned as we were working to have an assessment that assessed our new Common Core standards to the Smarter Balanced Assessment, which was given only for 1 year. And here we are now in our second year of what has been the new assessment, the Empower assessment that is created by Measured Progress and paid for by the state of Maine for Maine to assess these Common Core standards. What's important to know is that, first of all, even though this test is in its second year, we really are treating this as a baseline. Because the first year of the testing was in the 15-16 school year, and during that time, the test itself went through a couple changes. The results from the test were not available to us until nearly the next testing season. So the students took the test in 15-16 in the spring. The district started receiving some level of information in December, January, and parents whose students took the test the previous year received those score reports at the end of February, beginning of March, right before the next testing season. That short window did not allow us the opportunity to understand and respond to this new test. So when our students took the test again this spring in the 16-17 school year, we actually got the results in late July, early August for our own district. And then the information about how other districts in the state fared was open and available to us after September 25th. So we actually do believe that this year we have the information that we will be provided about the assessment. What they're giving us is what we're going to get. And we have the window of the opportunity for the full year until the test in the spring, March, April, to respond. This test tests students in grades, as I've said, 3 through 8, and it is for English language arts and math. The only other distinction to bring to your attention is in previous years' testing, students were assessed in writing separate from English language arts. They took a separate writing assessment in grade 5 and in grade 8. And now, with this new testing program, the test of written language is part of the English Language Arts assessment and the results that we get. So the story about the 11th grade testing, even though it's all under the umbrella of the MEA, is the high school test has changed over the years as well. There's been the SAT for a number of years with a main high school assessment. We actually gave our students the SAT. And then in that same 14-15 school year, the Smarter Balanced assessment was a one-year grade 11 test. And then now we're back to the main high school assessment, but as many folks know that have kids in school, it's the new SAT. So again, just these are slight adjustments, but it's one of the reasons why it's difficult for us to compare data are the switches in the testing program. And then you can see that the science test, we give a science test to students in grade 5, 8, and 11, has never changed. The version of that test for every year in the recent past has been the exact same. Another thing just to mention in terms of context, which doesn't seem to be that critical, but it does come up in some of our analysis of the data, is the size of the group of the students that were tested. And so referenced for you here are MSAD 51's current cohort sizes for the English Language Arts test last spring. We had 140 students in 5th grade taking the test. We had 165 students in 8th grade and 146 at the high school. And you can see the reference to Cape, Falmouth, and Yarmouth, some of our comparable neighbors, similar data sizes. And the state testing program, there's roughly between 12 and 13,000 students in a grade level. The reason why that's helpful for the board and the public to be aware of is as we analyze and review results, we look at them differently depending on the cohort size. A rough rule of thumb is if a group of students is smaller than 100, you're closer to seeing the results of those individual students and not an image of the program. And the more we have over 200 or closer to 200 students in the testing cohort, the more comfortable we are that what we're seeing are programmatic results and not just the story of a group of students. And so anyway, I'll get to a little bit more about this later, but it's helpful to see that some districts are a little bigger and a little smaller. Sometimes it explains some of the bobbles or wobbles in the data. So just to recap, we are talking about we are very pleased with our Common Core standards, or how Maine has adapted and revised the Common Core, because they ask students to do the kinds of thinking that we need for people to do in a literate society today. So we're ready for them. And I think that just the messages, our start of assessment only gave us 1 year of data, and we were not allowed to really compare it to other things. And now with the Empower data, we're in our 2nd year. It's really considered to be our baseline. And there are certain changes in how we get information. And like I said, the writing is different, but nothing that should really slow us down. So this first table is a big, what I call a roll-up. This is across the grades 3 through 8 and 11, the average percentage of students proficient in each of our districts. So in MSAD 51, to focus on our district, we can see that 76% of our students that took this test were proficient in English Language Arts, 69% in mathematics, and 79% in science. And that's across all of the grades tested combined together on average. And similar data is seen in our companion districts. These next 3 slides are giving us the districts' comparisons. It's a kind of statewide of comparable districts. So what we have done here for the English Language Arts, kind of who are the districts, is we've chosen to focus on districts that are comparable in terms of having numbers of students tested similar to our own. If the board or members of the public is looking in the newspaper or at a press release, you probably will see a slightly different organization in terms of what are the top 5 or 10 districts. But one of the decisions we made for you is that we wanted you to see districts where the data would be repeatable. In many cases, we have a lot of fabulous districts in the state of Maine, and hats off and kudos to them. The reason why we haven't chosen to show you the district of 72 students at Baxter Academy, that, by the way, blew the top off the ELA assessment last year, is 72 students is very likely the students, and it doesn't reflect a comparable district, and it wouldn't lead us to what could we do for inquiry for how to improve. So we have chosen to show for you, as it said in the header, these are districts where there's more than 500 students taking the test, and as I gave you that rule of thumb that at least 100 students in a cohort really helps us be comparable, you can see this was a low ball number because there were certainly more than 5 grade levels tested. So MSAD 51 is in good company in terms of our performance for English language arts as a district. For mathematics, we are again, for comparable districts, faring very well with 69% of our students proficient in mathematics, although these percentages can always be better. As you know, I've said many times, I've never met the family that said, don't worry about my kid, they don't need to be proficient. We are absolutely committed to 100% of our students, and we work very hard to do the best we can. And then in science, again, we're in this group of districts that we work with quite often in terms of which districts, and in this case, there were 3 grade levels to be tested. We chose a denominator of at least 200 students in those 3 grade levels. You can see MSAD 51 fared very well with 79% of our students overall in grades 5, 8, and 11 were seemed to be proficient in science. This array of data, and by the way, we will put this on the district website because obviously I didn't think you wanted me to read every number tonight and just presume this was to whet your appetite. But this display shows us for that English language arts assessment, what is the percentage of students at each grade level that contributed to that overall percentage of the district. And you can see that as you read across, our students, 64% of our 3rd grade students is not an incredibly compelling percentage. We are not pleased with that. However, this has been a trend in this district that the Teachers College Reading and Writing Workshop model, while starts us a little slow, you look where those kids end up in 8th grade, and they clearly have demonstrable skills that are competitive with the districts we consider to be competitive. So and the other thing we note or wonder about in our 3rd and 4th grade performance is that up until this past year, the 16-17 school year, we did not have a one-to-one model in our schools. And so one of our suspicions is that part of the suppression of the data is students working on a device that they're less than comfortable or familiar with and asked to do things that are not quite as routine. So we are optimistic as Dirk did an excellent job talking about what we're promoting as effective and thoughtful use of technology. It's not just to use it for everything, that our students, if that's an impact, that will fade. And you can see that by 8th grade, 78% of our students are proficient in English language arts, which is very comparable and a good place to be in history. Not 100%, we need to get further, but English language arts, we fare well. In mathematics, we see some alignment issues. We have very similar programs to our comparative districts. And when we see bobbles, like I would say that, frankly, it's not just our district, whereas we look at lower percentage of students proficient in some grade levels, we really believe this is an alignment and analysis project to understand the sequencing of the topics that we teach in those grade levels and make a judgment whether any adjustments should be made to better reflect the alignment of the tests the way the state has envisioned it. But again, as you look at the data and see where we're at, compared to the state, we clearly are advantaged, which we should be with the population we're serving and our staff. So we think these are accurate. This is accurate data, but it certainly gives us a place to go. There's more to do. And then in science, typically the state performs higher in science than it does in English language arts or math. And you can see that in our profile here as well. In 5th grade, it was 83% of the students proficient, in 8th grade, 86, and at the high school, 67, which for us was a hair low, but when we looked at our comparable districts and we were all kind of experiencing that same, that wasn't quite what we expected. Again, we just got the results. We're now talking to those neighboring districts and trying to really ascertain to what do we attribute this and what can we do about it. So just a couple comments about what we do with the information. Part of the reason why I did that build up in the beginning about there's been a variety of testing programs and we've been told not to compare data from years to years to years. You really have to compare apples to apples to make meaningful plans. That we're looking for data over time. We certainly look at our comparable districts to understand programming options and where's anyone more successful than us? What can we learn from them? When it's appropriate, we compare cohorts. So we look at the 3rd grade students and then see how they fared in 4th grade. And we give feedback to teachers and to programming, et cetera. And that's some of the ways that we judge our success. However, in this case, we use it for curriculum alignment. We sometimes have, and we're working right now on our assessments to say, are our internal assessments effective proxies to predict performance on this external assessment? So we're really actively getting to know the external assessment, looking at what we do internally to see the predictive value on it and seeing, what that can do for us. And asking ourselves, first of all, the incredible and wonderful thing about my job is that instruction works. We have found that when you teach students important skills, they learn them. And that really our challenge is to decide on what is the focus, what's the alignment, and then support that effective instruction, because that's what gets results for kids. It's really quite a straightforward process. But the punchline is that this data is really considered baseline for us. Because we didn't give our school teachers and students adequate time to respond to last year's results, while we have done some promising practices, and I'll just kind of foreshadow by saying I believe that our middle school really can tie together their response to intervention program last year and the uptick that they see in English language arts and math data within the cohorts and across the grade levels. There are, in many cases, evidence of gains that we believe we can talk about. In general, this data is baseline. We have not had the opportunity to understand it well and then plan from it. And so we really are standing, we're trying to resist the opportunity to talk about comparisons within cohorts or across years and bring back to you next year a more thoughtful discussion now that we'll have from now until March or April to make adjustments and support students with the assessment. So I think that's kind of the conclusion of this preliminary overview, and I welcome your questions or comments.
Kevin?
Thanks for the time you took to put this together. I have a couple of questions. So the cohort itself, how were the people chosen to be in that?
It's a great question. Thank you. That's a wonderful thing for the public to know. Part of our commitment is all students are tested. We are judged by making sure that at least 95% of students in every grade level participate in this test. And our percentages are higher than that. So they are not volunteers. It is an expectation that our students participate in this assessment. And the state allows us up to roughly 1% of students that could participate in an alternate assessment where their educational program is so clearly not grade level that an alternate's appropriate. But this is straight. Please have your students participate. We really need 100% of our students here at school to be counted and to be viewed as this data.
How many people opt out?
I believe the numbers varied by building, and I believe that Jeff, you'd be the best person to give that answer.
We have a handful of students last year during the testing cycle that opted out. Statistically, a very small number. The only year that we saw a large number of students opt out was the year of the SBAC, which was only 1 year, and the state got rid of it, and that was at the high school level. where we had a large number of students who opted out. But since that year, we have definitely 95% of our students taking the test.
Gotcha.
Thank you for that.
So my last question, you said your target's 100%, of course.
Absolutely.
What would make you really happy other than 100%?
I would say a significant percentage gain each year moving toward 100%, where we could really attribute the impact to curriculum alignment and effective instruction, not just a fluke.
Yeah.
So statistically, there's a lot of sub-data. These are the big categories. I don't react to things that are 1 or 2 percentage point changes. The state makes adjustments every year to score points in categories and the test slightly. So I'm looking for at least a 2 percentage point gain to be significant. So if we had 76% of our students one year, I'd be looking for at least 79 the next year to see that there truly was a
Lift.
improvement that we could try to wrap our hands around. But honestly, I don't know why we don't think that we can keep working smarter and get very close to that 100%. I'd rather set up a poll and always go after that last percentage than ever be complacent with even 90% of our students proficient.
I love that.
Oh, good. Okay.
Not that you need my validation,
Okay,
but
good. Okay, yeah.
thank you.
Anybody else?
I was just going to say that, first of all, thank you. This is a lot of information. I do think it is important for the board, particularly new board members, and the community to understand that the changes have been almost annual, except for, for the last few years. So the 14-15, the SBAC, that was, in my mind, a throwaway exam. I know at the high school we had so few people participate. And then across the board, so did our community members. And in some, maybe, I won't get into why, but maybe justifiably so, because the way that test was shared with us from the state, it came out in dribs and drabs. We had no, it just really, students were not, and families did not feel prepared that their student could possibly be prepared. And then I know that the data that we're looking at now for the Empower Maine, or me, the 15, 16, 16, 17 data was still sort of a work in progress. So I do appreciate that, it's hard for districts, or, for curriculum and directors such as yourself to make a change, to try to lead a change with your staff. It's not lack of desire among our staff, but when the results don't come out until October, November, December of the following year, your curriculum, is set for that year, and the changes that can be made are tweaks at that point. They're not significant changes. So I'm actually, quite frankly, surprised that some of our scores didn't dip, because I knew the test had changed so dramatically that students themselves just wouldn't necessarily be prepared for that type of testing. It was longer and it was more in depth. So that, to me, is a positive. And I do appreciate the support of the district to the curriculum, and to professional development, and to response to intervention. So I think the legs of the stool are in place to see further development, and I know you're in constant contact with your peers in other districts. So that gives me great peace of mind as well. So I think just from a community standpoint, I do sometimes have people stop and they think some of these, what's the dip in the score, or when my student was there, it seemed like the district was, always in this range. And so it is important that the community understand that the tests has changed dramatically, and I hope it doesn't continue. I hope they'll allow it to remain at least for 5 years, to allow us to get some real data that we can continue to move forward on.
Thank you. I just would say that it's a choice how you embrace that change. And it actually, if you have to think everything's an opportunity, but there's a huge opportunity for us to learn what it means to live in a churning and changing world and show kids how to deal. Right? The world they're going to be growing up in is going to require them to be adaptive and responsive. And we've tried not to be whiny about we're not getting released items anymore. This doesn't look like it used to. And instead say, this is how you roll. And what we're really going to show kids is this is what you do when things aren't perfect, and you just take your opportunities and you do what you can do with them. And to me, it's great in some ways to force those kind of changes into education, because that's the best thinking we'll do for our kids, is to show them this is how you do problem solving and thinking and be responsive, because the world's not going to slow down, and we don't want a signal just sit on the side and try to call foul, but instead to just say let's show them what we can do. And I just have to say, our administrators and teachers and ed techs and students, I think we have everybody has an amazing community. That's the way it should be. I can tell you that there's not many people that get to stand up and share results like we have, and it's not often that you can count on the largest percentage of your kids showing up to do their very best. So that's a thank you to the parents and the kids, and it's just an attitude in this community. So anyway, it's an opportunity. Oh, I went black.
Anybody else? Thank you, Sally. I think just what you said about that this is a baseline, this is, without a lot of knowledge, with a changing assessment, that this is where our students are falling, I think is really encouraging. And I think our RTI system shows in these results, you see grade to, 3 to 11, and it's a huge uptick. What we're doing is working, so thank you.
And I just have to put in the plug that the time we have to coordinate these discussions and make these plans is the early release time. And the staff that you have provided to our schools, in addition to core classroom teachers, is why non-special education students can get extra help in the day. This is not unique to our district. Every district does it differently, but we really appreciate the support.
That's good.
All right, so our next item on our agenda is our superintendent's report.
Thank you. If you've driven by the Performing Arts Center anytime lately, it is now underway after we had the groundbreaking ceremony a couple weeks ago. So the concrete is now being poured for the building, and it will be about 6 weeks for the foundation to be completed. At that point, they will start the rest of the main building. Most of the fill for the land of the Performing Arts Center is completed. It's completed a lot sooner than I thought it would be. And that's to fill in around the foundation so that the foundation would be put in. Just a comment about the school resource officer. We do have a school resource officer in our district, John Dahlback. And there were a couple of inquiries last week on Facebook as to whether or not that position was being eliminated. There were a number of parents who are concerned about it, and I'm just saying publicly, no, we have no plans to get rid of the school resource officer and position, and wanted to just put that out there because we did have a group of concerned parents about that. We had Ashley Caswell, who's our community resource manager, and Mark Bay, who's our pathways coordinator at the high school, met with the Chamber of Commerce for Falmouth and Cumberland. Had a great meeting last week, and that meeting is leading to some new partnerships with businesses in our immediate community, and those partnerships will be helping with placing students in internships and extended learning opportunities. So we're very thankful to the Falmouth Cumberland Chamber of Commerce. Greeley High School recently had a post-secondary fair. We had 80 colleges, universities, military, and other programs were represented. 350 students attended the annual event, but also from some other high schools, not just Greeley. We had some great feedback from admissions counselors and college representatives. And last week, we had a busy week last week. We also had 70 students and their parents who attended a grades 2 and 3 math night at Mabel Wilson School. And this was sponsored by the Foundation 51 grant. So we had parents and their kids that were partnering on math activities that night. One of the parents said this is such a fun way for our family to play and learn while in the school. And another parent said, my son and I had a lot of fun and look forward to finding similar games to develop during at-home play. So I'd like to thank all of our staff who volunteered to host the math night. Athletic news, Coach Mike Andreasen reached a milestone. He's been our boys varsity soccer coach for a number of years. And in their victory last week over Freeport, it was number 200 win for Coach Andreasen. So I'd like to congratulate him. That's quite a feat. Greeley football hosted their annual senior night in their game against York Friday night. I had a chance to stop by for a few minutes. It was really nice to have the seniors and the parents come out to the field with the seniors during halftime and get recognized. The Cumberland Climate Action Team, we have a lot of things going on in the district, which is really exciting. There's so much I couldn't even put in this report. But the Cumberland Climate Action Team recently analyzed our carbon footprint, looked at all of our energy bills, and found that with all the things that the district has been working on, including the board's support for energy efficiency, energy projects, purchasing of renewable energy credits, charging stations, composting, all of those things have added up to a 40% reduction in energy costs, which is now our baseline for energy conservation. In fact, we're a leader in the state, and our district was actually featured in the Sierra Report Maine edition, and there is actually a video of our students, our staff. There's a clip on the Sierra Club that features MSAD 51 for being a leader, partly in partnering with a local community group, which is our Cumberland Climate Action Team, which is very active here in Cumberland, one of the first in the state. So our partnership is really making a difference. There will also be an article featured this week in the Forecaster about that. I'd like to thank the Seacoast Swim Club for generously donating $10,600 to the Greeley Pool. Each year they donate funds to the pool for repairs. They have helped with starter blocks, new grip for the block, sound system, a new sound system, heat, and a new electronic panel, and a starter system. So it's an enormous amount of investment from the Seacoast Swim Club. And we'd like to thank Marnie Dean, who is the outgoing president of that club, and the board there at Seacoast. I also had a chance to drop by the Fall Fling for Foundation 51, which was on Friday evening. As you know, Foundation 51 raises thousands and thousands of dollars for the district, and they had their annual Fall Fling event, which is a huge event. They sold out at 200 tickets. I think it was 250 tickets. And they had parents who come and donate, community businesses and vendors that donate as well to the cause. It was a great event to see so many of our parents and business leaders in the community supporting our schools last Friday evening. So we really appreciate all of their support. And finally, proficiency. This will be on my blog tomorrow. I won't read all of it. But the next proficiency primer piece is around feedback and progress reporting. And that is a big topic in our district because in about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the first quarter will end at the high school. And in about 5-6 weeks, the first trimester will end in our elementary and middle schools. So with that being done, there will be some changes this year, especially at the high school level, in terms of being given feedback, students being given feedback on progress reports. Some of the changes that will be noticed are habits of work at the high school. The middle school started separating that out last year, and this year the high school will be separating that out. So those are things like arriving at class on time, being ready to learn, collaborating with others, In the old days, when we handed something in late, we might get 10 points off. Today, we don't do that. That's not affecting the grade. There is a separate assessment that students now get for those kinds of things that help them and support them in learning. So that's a big change that the middle school made, and now this year the high school will be making that change. And then the other big piece, especially at the high school, is around standards for graduation and reporting on how students are doing in their progress towards graduating with standards. And I just want to put a plug in for our very hardworking teachers in our district around proficiency. They've been working for years and years on this. The high school, this will be a big year for them, as this is the first graduating class. It will be the class of the 9th grade class that we currently have. Will be learning proficiency the most in the next 4 years, and our teachers are learning as well on how to report proficiency. And so we just ask that our families are patient with us as we navigate the first quarter, especially at the high school this year, and know that we are continuing those conversations around the best reporting practices for our high school students. So, thank you.
All right, so we're moving on to our committee reports. Karen, I'll start with you if you have anything to share.
Jeff already shared about the Cumberland Climate Action report, so that's the only thing I had there. And the Finance Committee is meeting tomorrow morning at 8:15. We'll be doing the quarterly actual to budget report from Scott, and that's the primary thing on our agenda tomorrow.
Great. I'm going to put policy down at the end. Oh, I guess we don't have any first reads. So policy met tonight, and we took a look at a few policies that need to go back to Drummond and Woodsum, and then we will hopefully have some new policies for everyone for first read next meeting. Curriculum. Karen?
No report this evening.
Okay. Negotiations. I know Scott is not here, so we'll move over that one. Facilities.
Facilities is, as mentioned at the last meeting, hitting the ground running. Our next meeting is November 6th at 9 a.m. down in the administrative office conference room, the palatial conference room, right there on the first floor of the building. As Jeff mentioned, the concrete and some of the site work has already begun over at the Performing Arts Center. Excitingly, we have just entered the last year of construction for the Performing Arts Center. So that's nearing completion at this time. And next week, several of us will be attending the Maine School Management Association, and there's several exciting sessions up there dealing with performance contracts and some of the things that we're doing here. And Steve Blatt will be joining us on the 6th at 9 a.m. All are welcome.
Thank
Love
you.
that word, palatial.
Palatial. Makes it sound really impressive.
Kevin, strategic planning.
I want to say palatial, too.
Work it in.
Thank you. So a few things to add from strategic planning. There was a meeting last week, which was one of the subcommittees, the stakeholder group. The invitations have gone out. There's been a change in the way that people can register. They can do it online so that they can ensure that the group that they're part of can be well represented and that we can have groups well balanced. We had a meeting tonight, which was of the Community Dialogue Subcommittee as well, and some spectacular work by Jeff and Sally putting together many of the materials that we used this evening. And the group weighed in on a number of the different topics that helped to shape what will actually happen at that session to ensure that everybody who does invest time in coming to the session will be heard, will be engaged, and will have their opinions offered and really have a lasting impact on the way the strategic plan moves forward. Meeting on next Monday at Mabel I at 4:30. 4:30.
Thank you. Student reports.
As Mr. Porter said, the first quarter is rapidly coming to a close, and that's sort of stressful, I know, for seniors, especially because those grades are reported to colleges. But other than that, everything is going pretty smoothly. The overall atmosphere in the high school, though, is a little bit noisy and hectic, especially with the Performing Arts Center. Some classrooms are shaken up every once in a while, but other than that, we're getting by. So.
Madeline?
I'd agree with everything that's already been said. I think, yeah, PSATs were last week, so everyone but the seniors took those, I believe, and that went well. So, yeah.
Thank you. Next item, communications. I would say maybe just have folks go to the website for the community dialogue event, fill out that form. It's important to get that community stakeholder feedback for our strategic planning. So the next on our items for action, we have 4 policies for second read and approval. So Mike, do you want to help me out with
I would
giving me
love
some
to help you
motions
out.
here? Thank you.
I would motion to approve policy DI, financial reporting as presented.
All right, if I have a motion, then we can move to any discussion.
You need a second first.
Oh, second, yeah.
I'll second.
Thanks, Kevin.
Any discussion on this policy? All right, seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? All right, so we have our next policy.
I'd like to motion we approve policy DIE, audits and financial monitoring as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? All opposed? All right, moving on to our tax sheltered annuities policy. Do I have a motion?
Kate, if I could, I'd like to motion to approve policy DLB, tax sheltered annuities as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? All opposed? All right, moving on to our last policy of the evening. Do I have a motion?
I will motion to approve policy JB, transgender student guidelines as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Great. And now can I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I'll motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
I was waiting for Mike, but I thought he had it all wrapped up.
I was going to vote against it.
This is palatial.